Here's my 6 Pokemon team to pull off a heist. Gen 1. For a Mastermind, I would have gone with Mewtwo, but he's too chaotic. I'm pretty sure he would just kill all the guards before the heist even starts, and walk in, kill everyone, take whatever you want, isn't a heist, that's warfare. So instead, I'm going with Alakazam. Because it has an IQ of 5,000, it can apparently remember everything that has ever happened in the history of the world, and it can see the future. Yeah, that's a mastermind. For our hacker, I'm going with Porygon, because, let's be honest, Gen 1 was created in the 90s. This was one of the only Pokemon that could interface with computers. To this day, it's one of the only Pokemon that can interface with computers. What's up with that? For our demolitions expert, you'd expect something like Voltorb or Coughing, something that's known for blowing itself up. But I don't need something that blows itself up, I need something that destroys other stuff. So instead, I'm going with Magmar. For our face, I'm going with Ditto, for obvious reasons, just so long as it's not that one Ditto that couldn't transform right. Sorry, buddy, we still love you. For our sneak, I'm going with Gengar, so that he can literally just walk through the walls, grab the MacGuffin, and walk out. Now, that might make the rest of the crew obsolete, but I'm going with it because it's awesome. And for our muscle, and just in case we need to carry something that Gengar can't, I'm going with Machamp. Gen 2. This one was hard, partly because it just doesn't introduce that many new Pokemon. Out of the 99 Pokemon that it does introduce, 20% of them are pre-evolutions or evolutions of Gen 1 Pokemon, which makes them essentially the Gen 1 Pokemon that I wasn't going to use anyway. And most importantly, there's not really anything in this entire generation that would make for a good Fixer, Sneak, Face, Mastermind, or Getaway. This gen doesn't even have anything particularly smart. So those constraints make for a really interesting challenge. But I did find one really good idea for a Mastermind. A Mastermind has 3 jobs: make the plan, explain the plan, and figure out the security, or in other words, case the joint. And you know which Pokemon is great at casing a joint? Xatu. Because it can see the past and the future at the same time. I was gonna give the getaway role to Yanma because its entire thing is speed, but it turns out there are 2 Pokemon in this gen that can learn Teleport, and only 2. Natu and Xatu. So I guess Xatu is just getting another role. Gen 2 does have a lot of good options for a demolitions expert. Fortress, Magcargo, Dunsparce, but our best option here is Donphan. Because, quoting from the Pokedex, if Donphan were to tackle with his hard body, even a house could be destroyed. Using its massive strength, this Pokemon helps clear boulders and mudslides that block mountain trails. This thing is built for demolition. For distraction, I was gonna go with Miss Dravis because there's multiple Pokedex entries about how it likes to play tricks on people. But I'm a little worried it's gonna try to play tricks on its fellow crew members. However, there's an even better option here, because Murkrow already steals stuff, it's used to working on a crew with a boss, it would want to be on a heist crew to steal shiny stuff, and it has super luck! We do have one excellent option for a sneak. A Pokemon so good at sneaking that it is named after its sneaking ability, Sneasel. For a muscle, I would have gone with Hitmontop because it's one of the only fighting type Pokemon in the entirety of Gen 2. That can't be right. No, seriously, there is Tyrogue, Hitmontop, and Heracross. And Heracross doesn't like to fight if it doesn't have to. But it would be good at carrying stuff, I guess? But putting all that aside, Ursaring is stronger anyway. Might as well just go with that. Gen 3. This one was fun. Where Gen 2 didn't have enough heistable Pokemon, this one has too many. There's so many interesting Pokemon in this gen that I could easily do a heist versus heist thing. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do. Check out my Patreon for an exclusive video about which Pokemon I would put on crew number 2. For this video, let's talk about crew number 1. Any heist crew needs a mastermind, and for crew number 1, we're going with Sableye, because it's good at sneaking in darkness and finding jewels. This thing's gonna be great at casing a joint. For crew number 1 Sneak, I'm going with Zigzagoon, because it's small, only about this big, so it could easily fit through vents. And because of its pickup ability, it can kind of just walk over the MacGuffin and pick it up and no one will be the wiser. But, as one of my followers told me, this does need to be the Zigzagoon from Ruby and Sapphire because they nerfed the pickup ability in Emerald. For our face, crew number 1 gets Gardevoir. Enough said. Gardevoir is also one of the only Pokemon that can use Teleport in this gen, so she's also going to be our getaway. If you want muscle, you want slacking. But he's too slow to be useful in a heist, especially since he can only move once every other turn. So for this crew, we're foregoing muscle entirely in favor of a Demolitions expert, which is going to be Camerupt. And lastly, both crews are going to get crowd control, and this one is going to get Absol, because it controls barometric pressure, essentially controlling the weather. Gen 4. I know, this gen sounds really easy because of all the fantastic legendaries, but if you already have the gods of time and space on your team, why are you pulling a heist? At best, that is going to be a simple in-and-out job, and a heist is not a simple in-and-out job. A heist is an elaborate plan to steal something difficult. If it's not elaborate, that's not a heist, that's burglary. If you have canonically Satan on your team, and you promise Giratina a part of the cut, then you have made a deal with the devil. And we know better than that. If you have the fountain of all emotion on your team, you probably have too much empathy to be stealing, even from a billionaire. And Shaman is too likely to bestow gratitude on you, and then you wouldn't want to do a heist. And if you tracked down a cryptid at the bottom of a lake, and you woke up the source of all the world's knowledge just to steal some diamonds? I'm sorry, do you also track down Bigfoot just to ask for a hair care routine? Do you track down the Loch Ness Monster just to go swimming? Do you ask Mothman for advice on lighting in your room? And if you're bringing God on your heist, well, with apologies to Star Trek,
what does God need with a starship?
So I am going to rule out the legendaries, but I'm not going to rule out the pseudo-legendaries or the mythicals. Mostly because I just don't understand how that classification system works. Why are we being this pedantic about it? But with those gone, Gen 4 doesn't really have that many options. It's mostly just very grounded Pokemon after the insanity that was Gen 3. But we still have a few options. For our Mastermind, I'm going with Honchkrow because it's literally an in-universe mob boss. I'm a little worried that no one would ever trust it, but after I already rolled out Uxie, it's literally our only option. For our transport, I would have gone with Empoleon, but it's too proud to be used as a taxi service. So I'm going with Gallade, because it's the literal only Pokemon in this entire generation with Teleport. It's also a good fighter. Perugly is pulling triple duty here. It's intimidating, so it's going to be kind of our muscle. It's one of the only Pokemon in this generation that knows Hypnosis, so it's kind of doing some crowd control. And it also knows Attract. So, is that a face, or is that just more crowd control? Because I don't think I can justify a Lopunny just because it's the only Pokemon in this entire generation that gets the Cute Charm ability. For our Hacker, who else but Rotom? Technically, it's not a legendary, it's a mythical. I don't know what the difference is, but it means I get to use it based on my own rules that I made up. For our Sneak, I would have gone with Weavile, but I honestly think Ambipom would be better here because it gets Pickup and Thief. Oh, and a Bidoof, because everyone in this gen needs a Bidoof. Now you might be thinking, but what about Gabite? It already digs up gems. The thing is, Gabite is canonically targeted by thieves. Gabite isn't on the heist crew, Gabite is the mark. Gen 5 has so many heisty Pokemon that I could literally do 3 heist crews. Crew number 3 would be kinda lame, but I could still do it. So, we're doing heist versus heist again. Let's start with crew number 1, and I'll talk about crew number 2 on Patreon. You would think I would just come out swinging by just straight up cheating using Victini, because, quoting from the Pokedex, it is said that trainers with Victini always win regardless of the type of encounter. And you know what counts as an encounter? A heist. Wait, why are there even Pokemon battles if Victini exists? Oh well, I haven't played Black and White, they probably explain it there. Anyway, the actual reason I'm not including Victini is because at that point, there's no point having a crew of 6. Actually, there's just no point having a heist at all, because a heist is an elaborate plan to steal something difficult, and Victini makes so that you can just walk in and take whatever you want, and that's not elaborate. So instead, we are building an actual heist crew. For our Mastermind, I'm going with Gothitelle, because it can just straight up see the future. For our getaway, I'm going with Keldeo because it is canonically too fast to follow. Gen 5 has a lot of great options for a demolitions expert. Ferrothorn can reduce boulders to rubble, Terrakion can destroy a castle with one blow, Caracosta can choose steel beams and open a hole in the bottom of a tanker with one slap, Scraftree can smash concrete blocks with its kicking attacks, Gigalith can blow away a mountain, Fracture can destroy rocks, Exadrill drills through iron plates, and Dwebble can melt holes through rocks with a liquid in its mouth. Jeez, with all these metal threats, how do buildings in Unova stay up? But if you want to sneak in a heist, you don't want to blow down the front door and announce your entry, unless that's part of the distraction. No, what we want is something small, subtle, precise, and from a distance. So I'm going with Swoobat, which can make a noise from its mouth that destroys rocks from a distance, and conveniently, it can put people in a good mood. We're gonna have a designated lookout on this team, because Patrat's whole thing is being a lookout. We're actually having 2 sneaks on this team. Yes, this is just crew number 1, and we're already having 2 sneaks. Whimsicott can sneak through any gap, and it's used to sneaking into homes to cause all sorts of mischief. And Liepard is so good at sneaking that it seems to just appear and disappear. And Cophagrigus? This is the thing they're heisting. Now, you'd think I would have included Crocodile, but why is Crocodile not heisty? There are so many ways to make this thing heisty. It could have had an ability like Frisk, Infiltrator, Pickpocket, or Stakeout. But instead, it just gets Intimidate or Moxie. It can learn Thief and Covet, but only through move tutors and TMs, which means that it doesn't even know how to steal things naturally in the wild. It can't even trap its opponents with Mean Look naturally. Mean Look is an egg move here. And you'd think it could at least set up a trap with something like Spikes. I get that they're trying to do the 1920s henchman thing, but this feels like the wrong Pokemon to do the 1920s henchman thing. It didn't get any moves that feels like it's threatening you to pay up, or we're gonna have to talk to the boss. It doesn't even look like a mob enforcer. It looks like a burglar. If you're gonna give it a bandit mask like frickin' Crime Man, might as well let it actually steal stuff. Gen 6. There's really not any good getaway Pokemon in this gen. Our best option is Helios, which can run 100 yards in 5 seconds, but that's only 40 miles per hour, or 66 kilometers per hour. It's not exactly getaway car speed. And that's probably sprinting speed, not sustained speed. That's not going to get us very far. We don't even get teleport in this entire generation. So if we don't have a good getaway, let's just skip that to save more room on our team. That does give us a really interesting challenge, because it means we need to build an entire team around the idea that we don't need to get away fast, because we're just going to keep constantly heisting the entire way from the target to the base. And Gen 6 is the perfect generation to make that team. We're going to start with Malamar, which has the most compelling hypnotic powers of any Pokemon and forces others to do what it wants. Honorable mention to Aegislash, which use their spectral power to manipulate and control people and Pokemon. And that's awesome. But Malamar is just canonically better at it. Sorry, Aegislash. From there, we're going with Hoopa, because it's basically just a life-size bag of holding, and because, according to the Pokedex, it can seize anything it desires. Now, troublemakers are a little bit hard to rely on in a heist, but come on, this thing would be 100% down for a heist. For our sneak, we're going with Frogadier, because the one thing the Pokedex really wants you to know about it is that it can scale a tower of more than 2,000 feet in a minute's time. For a demolitions expert, we have a few good options. When Meowstic is in danger, it raises its ears and releases enough psychic power to grind a 10-ton truck to dust. Dragouge's poison can eat through the hull of a tanker. Clawitzer's cannonballs can shoot through a tanker hull. And it could have been a good transport option, because it can move at a speed of 60 knots, which is 66 miles per hour or 111 kilometers per hour. Wait, why are knots even a thing when they're this close to miles per hour and this close to kilometers per hour divided by 2? I get that knots started as literal knots that sailors would tie together and then throw the rope overboard to see how fast the rope was going out of the boat. I get that. But for the love of Arceus, Why didn't they just tie the knots closer? That would have been miles per hour. Or tie the knots closer and divide by 2, and that would have been kilometers per hour. Or if you just want kilometers per hour, just tie the knots further apart. You can tie the knots to any distance you want. Why do you need your own unit of measurement when we already have 2 perfectly good ones? Oh. Looks like a knot is 1 nautical mile per hour. No, you don't get to invent a new mile per hour when we already had miles per hour that were so close to a nautical mile per hour. What are we doing? Anyway, Clawitzer's not going to be our transport because we're probably not going to be getting away on the water. Probably. And even if we were, it's not the best option to plan for that as our only getaway option. But it's an interesting option, but I don't need something that can beat down a castle door. This is a heist, not a siege. So for our demolitions expert, I'm going with Froggedier's evolution and the most iconic Pokemon in this entire generation. Look, did you really think I would go through this entire gen and not include Greninja? Okay, here's my reasoning. It's not just that it's a ninja and ninjas are awesome. It's because it creates throwing stars out of compressed water. When it spins them and throws them at high speeds, these stars can cut metal in two. Not only is that top sneaky and cooler than a bobsledding penguin, it's unstoppable! What, you're gonna set up a security system that has no water in the entire building? All it needs to break into your building is water! That's awesome! We only get 2 slots left, so I'm going with Swirlix because... Do I have to read this Pokedex entry? Fine. To entangle its opponents in battle, it extrudes white threads as sweet and sticky as cotton candy. Look, it's like spider webs, okay? And I don't know if Klefki would be willing to join the heist or if it would be part of the security. So just in case Klefki isn't joining the heist, I'm adding a muscle. Halucha, because it's hard to block and it can keep up with heavy hitters like Machamp and Hariyama. Gen 7. For our mastermind, I was considering Alolan Raticate because it's greedy enough to want to pull off a heist, it's used to the finer things in life, and it's used to being in charge of a group. But it's not very good at taking care of its crew, and it might be too greedy to split the take between its crew members equally. Passimian is definitely more wholesome as a mastermind, teaching new crew members and never letting a crew member down, but our best option, objectively, is a Rangaroo. It's used to telling Pokemon what to do, and apparently other Pokemon do what it says. It would want to pull off a heist just to prove it's smarter than the security, and it's known for its extreme intelligence. We get the shrewd ego of Alolan Raticate and the camaraderie of Passimian. It's the best of some worlds. For our demolitions expert, Crabominable can smash thick walls to tiny bits, Mudsdale can scrap a truck with a single kick, and no, this is not going to become a Pokerap, I'm sorry. Somebody recommended Blacephalon, which, great idea. That's his whole thing, is blowing itself up. But I don't need something that'll blow itself up. I need something that'll destroy other things, preferably through precise holes and or quietly, but I'll take something more noticeable if that'll help as a distraction. So for this demolitions expert, I'm going with a Alolan Diglett, because, in the words of the Pokedex, although it's powerful enough to dig through volcanic rock, it doesn't allow itself to be seen very often. For our getaway, I would have gone with Pheromosa because it has been spotted running across the land at terrific speeds, but Pheromosa has been spotted. You know what only gets spotted if it wants to be? Tapu Koko, which flies too quickly for the eye to follow. I'm sorry, what? And somehow Keldeo is still faster than that? Marshadow is one of my favorite sneaks in all of Pokemon. I'm just gonna read from a few of its Pokedex entries, word for word. Able to conceal itself in shadows, it never appears before humans, so its very existence was the stuff of myth. It lurks in the shadows of others, copying their movements and powers. It sinks into the shadows of people and Pokemon, where it can understand their feelings and copy their capabilities. As it improves, it becomes stronger than those it's imitating. This whole Pokedex sounds like an application to be in a heist, and your application has been accepted. For our first and last time, we're including a sniper, and it's Decidueye. It fires arrow quills from its wings with such precision they can pierce a pebble at a distance of over 100 yards. On top of that, Decidueye can knock and fire an arrow at an enemy in a 1/10 of a second. So its battles are decided in the blink of an eye. That is so good that I have to create a whole sniper position just to put this guy on the team. And for our last Pokemon from this gen, we're putting in something to put the security to sleep. Morlul, which scatters spores that flicker and glow, and anyone seeing these lights falls into a deep slumber. Does Gen 8 have the heistiest Pokemon? Drizzile lays traps, Nickit lives by stealing, silently I might add, and it even knows how to literally cover its tracks. And Thievul, which is somehow not related to Sneasel, secretly marks its targets with a scent, and then by following its scent, it can stalk its targets and steal from them when they least expect it. It's a really hard choice, but our sneak is gonna have to be Impidimp, which sneaks into people's homes, stealing things, and feasting on the negative energy of its frustrated occupants. And Gen 8 has so many Pokemon that are great at casing a joint. Blipbug is a constant collector of information and has hairs on its body that it uses to assess its surroundings, and Orbeetle emits psychic energy to observe and study what's around it, and what's around it can include things over 6 miles away. Almost 10 kilometers. But the clear and easy winner here is Calyrex Shadow Rider, which can see all events from past to future.
Big deal, so can Xatu.
Shut up, off-screen me! Come here, girl. Oh, hello there. Come here, boy. Oh, hello. For our mastermind, we're going with Rillaboom. This has everything that Honchkrow doesn't. It is respected by its group for its skills, it values harmony among the crew, and it has a gentle disposition. This is a Pokemon that understands creating a great team. For a transport, the obvious choice is Corviknight. This is literally just a Galarian getaway car, and it's not even gonna be noticed. But Dracloak can fly over 120 miles an hour. That's over 193 kilometers per hour. It has 50% more speed than Corviknight, and it's used to carrying passengers. So, sorry, Boltund, but you were never in the running.
But wait!
What is it, off-screen me?
Galarian Zapdos can run at 180 miles an hour.
Sorry, Dracloak, we're going with a literal cryptid instead. What am I doing with my life?
And Galarian Zapdos can kick powerfully enough to pulverize a dump truck.
Okay, but is that more powerful than Galarian Rapidash, which can punch a hole through a sheet of metal?
Yes.
Or Dreadnought with jaws that can shear through steel rods?
Maybe.
Or Copperajah, whose trunks are strong enough to crush giant rocks to powder?
Possibly.
Or Galarian Articuno, who can shear through thick iron sheets as if they were paper? We have our demolitions expert, and for our last slot, I'm going with Obstagoon, because just look at this fine hedge thing. It's been wanting to be the muscle for a gang ever since it evolved. If we don't put in the heist, it's gonna be sad. Gen 9. For once, our demolitions expert is easy. Our only option, really, is Knacklestack. It compresses rock salt inside its body and shoots out hardened salt pellets with enough force to perforate an iron sheet. That's gonna be so useful to sneak in. So, who's sneaking in? We're calling in Spidops, because with a name like Spidops, I can't not include that. And its lore matches the name. According to the Pokedex, it moves without a sound and takes out its prey before the prey even notices it. From there, we just need to give Spidops all the support in the world. We're supporting Spidops with 2 distractions. First, Meowscarada is going to rig the location with pollen-packed flower bombs. Then, while Bombardier is dropping loud stuff from the sky, Meowscarada is going to set off its flower bombs to create absolute chaos. For our getaway, Kilowattrel flies at 430 miles per day. How fast is that? Oh, never mind. Okay, how about Cyclozar? That wants people to ride on its back. That's not bad. We have our getaway. And for our lookout, I'd like something that can sense danger and create a signal that its allies will recognize, but the security won't. Tadbulb, I choose you! Thank you so much for watching. Check out my Patreon to find the other crews from Gen 3 and Gen 5, and to help support my Heist movie. Special thanks to these patrons for helping to fund my Heist movie. Follow for more Heist movies.